Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Corrigan, and this is the Journey Continues podcast, where we speak to interesting individuals about how they navigated the challenges in their lives. Our mission is not to provide advice, but it is 100% to provide insight into what our guests were thinking and feeling through these times so you can cherry pick the information that resonates with you the most. Today, we have something a little bit different. It's springtime, the days are getting longer, hopefully a little bit warmer. We've had some positive news here in the UK that lockdown is easing. And I would say in general, the vaccination programs are going quite well. So what we wanted to do was, before we move on to the next stage of the podcast, we wanted to look back at some of the great insights that some of our guests have given us so far. So today's a little bit about reflection before we move forward on to the next stage and what will hopefully be a far better and adventure-filled 2021. So I hope you enjoy these clips. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon. So let's kick things off. I feel like when we speak to people about the beginning of the pandemic, everyone has a moment where the penny drops and we realize this is happening and it's a big thing. And I feel like everyone's memory is quite vivid of that. How did it all start for you?
Yeah, so for me, I guess that it was around beginning of March, when the pandemic slowly started happening. You started hearing more about it on the news. And then, at that time, around like end of March, we were planning a trip for Tulum. So I'm just like keeping track of numbers, being like, okay, are we still going to be able to take this trip? Is it safe? Oh, right, the numbers are still low. But then when I just kept seeing the numbers go up, and it was like surpassing the SARS numbers, and a lockdown was going to be announced, and you started seeing people and hearing about people on the news like panic shopping. You go grocery shopping and like toilet paper is out, flour is out. I think that was when like it hit for me. It was just like, oh no, like this is actually happening. Like the numbers are just going to continue to go up and we're going to be in this lockdown, and like changes are happening. There's no going back to normal for a while. It's like looking forward to normal. So yeah, so I would say like in March was when like that penny dropped, and I just kind of like started to see like a shift in everyone's behavior, and even my husband's behavior, and like just kind of like starting to worry, about our family and like food situation and stuff like that. But yeah.
So you had some amazing news. You became a mum for the first time about 5 or 6 months before the pandemic. How's it been becoming or being a new mother since it all started?
Yeah, well, like, when you become a new mom, like there's so many new experiences that you're going through with your partner, and you're figuring things out. And, I have my family that'll like help me out from time to time. And like I have my friends who have kids that I'll message, and they'll like, provide advice and stuff like that. But at that time I was I had joined a moms group, and I started meeting other moms, and meeting this like great community of moms to like share tips and stuff with, like, and you'd hang out with each other, and all your kids are around similar ages, and you're like, looking forward to the future where like, your kids can like continue playing together, go to school together and stuff like that. Yeah, well, like those mommy groups were happening once a week, and then once the pandemic happened, we couldn't have those meetups anymore. And we have a group chat that we would keep in touch on, but it's kind of hard because all moms, a lot of the moms in my group were second-time moms, and they were really busy with 2 kids, and even just being busy with 1 kid, it's just kind of hard to keep up with like messaging and stuff like that. So I found that group pretty quiet. So I was really lacking that support group and sense of community.
Cool. And then how has life been then through the pandemic, and I guess managing your time and managing the new situation?
Yeah, well, I think My parents always say this to me when I FaceTime them, like when we were at the beginning of the pandemic, they're like, oh, you're so lucky that you have Jaden during the pandemic. Like all you get to do is just like spend time with him. And I'm very grateful for that time spent with him. I mean, even like before the pandemic, I would have still been spending a lot of time with him, but, but because you couldn't go anywhere, you couldn't see anyone, you couldn't visit anyone. It was just like, okay, it's just time to be home and be present with your kid, and that's all that you can do. So, you know, I'm very grateful for the time that I have with Jada during the pandemic while I was on mat leave. But at the same time, I feel like it was just really lonely. Being at home with my husband, it's great, and having him around to like help take care of Jaden is great, but you get lonely not being able to go meet up and have a drink with your friends and go to fitness classes, because that was also another great community that I was a part of, that where I don't get to hang out with my friends there anymore.
Yeah. I feel like we're all missing the social touch points we're so used to having. So, I miss going to the pub or the bar because I miss the atmosphere, I miss the music, I miss the conversations, being in a coffee shop and hearing that chatter. It's quite nice. And I can't wait for that to come back.
Hearing that coffee machine go off in the background while you're working from your computer.
So like, obviously you picked up, and this is what I love, like you picked up something new and you started to do something completely new. So can you tell us a bit more about what that is? Because I don't want to drop any spoilers just now.
Yes.
I guess how that started.
Yes. So, during the pandemic, when you're at home with your ex-month-old, you're either spending time with him, or then while he's napping, you just kind of like want to zone out and go on social media. So for me, I would go on Instagram, and I slowly started discovering roller skating. Like I slowly started seeing it pop up on my feed, and seeing beautiful men and women just jam skating. So jam skating is a style of skating where you're just like dancing on roller skates and doing all these elegant and fun moves. And I was like, oh, this is like so neat. And I would like start liking them. And how Instagram and Facebook's algorithm works, they slowly start popping up on your feed. And I'm like, this would be pretty fun to try, because during that time it was like spring, like around spring, summer, when I started to discover it. And I'm like, you know what, maybe I should look into getting a pair of skates. Like maybe this is something that would be fun for me to try out, and a part of me was kind of holding back, because I was like, oh, well, what if I don't like it? Then I'm just going to have a pair of skates just collecting dust. And then I'm like, well, what if I will like it? So I went online, found myself a pair of skates. It's really hard. At the time, it was really hard to find a pair of skates, because during that time, I think a lot of men and women were getting into roller skating. Like it was like this trend that was happening. So I ended up finding myself a pair of decent quality skates and picked them up, and took them. Where did I first start skating? I just took it to like an empty basketball court near my house while Jaden was sleeping, and my husband Mason would stay at home and look after Jaden, and went for a skate. And that was when it happened. I fell in love with roller skating, and yeah, I thought I would be this jam skater, but it turns out after a few times roller skating, I started discovering people who were park skating. So park skating is a different form of skating. It's like a little bit more of like the extreme sports category, where you would roller skate in half pipes and bowls, and you go to the skate parks and you go off jumps and stuff like that. So I think that extreme, because I'm a pretty extreme adventurous person, so I think that extreme side of me was like, oh, you know what? No, jam skating is not for me. You know what? I'm going to try that. There's a skate park near my house, so I'm going to try it out. And I jumped it. I crawled into the bowl because I didn't know how to drop in, is what you call it. And I started just flopping around, rolling around like a fish, not knowing what I was doing, but I loved it. I fell in love with it.
What was it like the first time you turned up at the skate park? Because, I remember when I went snowboarding for the first time, I bought all this equipment, and when you're new to something, you're not really sure if you're buying the right stuff. So you're kind of going on someone's word if that's the right snowboard or the right jacket, the right helmet. And yeah, obviously you're brand new at it. So what was that like?
Yeah, well, for me, it was, oh my gosh, I don't think I'd ever been to a skate park before. I mean, I skateboarded when I was 16, when I was younger. But I was just like, I never ended up at the skate park. So I didn't know what that feeling was. But so my first time at the skate park was when I started roller skating. And for me, I was really intimidated just driving there. I was like, oh no, are there going to be skateboarders there? Like, are they going to be like, oh, what is this roller skater here doing? Like, I was worried about, being judged, being judged for being a roller skater, being judged for being a female in, in a male space. Like, not saying that the parks are male space, but like a lot of the times there's more, I find there's more male skateboarders at the skate park than females. And it was really nerve wracking. And I was like, you know what, just push through these feelings. Like, you made it here. Like, let's just put on your roller skates. I think I had, you had mentioned gear. I had purchased, the bare minimum. It's like wrist guards and knee pads. Because when I had purchased my roller skates, I was like, going to be jam skating. I didn't think I'd find myself at the park. And then I had brought my husband's bike helmet with me, just to stay on the safe side. And I'm standing there at the top of the bowl, and there was this man who was skating. He was just dropping in, skating around on the bowl. And I was like, okay, I'm like, you just drop in. And I was like, okay, maybe I can just drop in. I'm like looking down. I'm like, no, there's no way I can do it. I think it was like a 7-foot drop in. And and I'm like, no, I can't do it. And I was like, well, how am I going to get in? And then, well, how am I going to get out? And I'm like, you know what? Just get in. You'll figure it out. I told myself. And I crawled in and skated around in the pool, figured out how to go back and forth. I was like, I look like an idiot right now, but this is so much fun. And I think as soon as I got in the bowl and started skating around, I think that's when all my fears of judgment like disappeared, because those feelings, that joy and fun, like accomplishing like this challenge, it just surpassed those negative feelings that I was feeling.
Yeah, I love that for so many reasons. Like, you overcame the fear of becoming a beginner again. And I think that's something that probably gets harder and harder as life goes on. So I think that's something that I love, and I love that story for that reason. And then, just even the understanding like because anytime you do something new, you almost subconsciously look for what the etiquette is of the new situation. So it's like, in a snowboarding sense, it's like, how do I get onto the ski lift? When is it my turn and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So you've got all this kind of stuff to figure out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I did have to figure that out, because when I started going to the skate park, I was a mom on mat leave who had some extra time on her hands when her son was sleeping. So I would go during the day when people were working, or I would go early morning, because during that time when I started, it was summer. So there were also some kids there skateboarding or on their scooters. But most of the time when I went, it was empty. But during the times when I went, when it started getting busy, I think it's like common sense to like wait your turn, like you it just kind of comes to you, like, when you see a lineup, you wait in the back of the line, stand in the front of the line. And it's like the same common sense at skate park. If you're with, if there's 10 people there, it's just like, okay, who went? Okay, if I just came in, okay, I'm going to be like the 10th person. And you just kind of like keep track of that. But sometimes, there would be people, there'd be more chattier people. And then so when it's their turn, and, for me, I was always like, any time that I got to skate, it was like, I'm on a time limit, I only got like 45 minutes to skate. So it's like, are you go? So it's like, it's your turn now. Like, are you gonna go? Can I go? Like, and when you're caught up in that situation, that's when you just ask like, hey, it's your turn. You go, and they'll be like, no, it's okay, you can go. So over time, you just kind of learn, it's common sense, but over time you'll learn etiquette. Or like when someone, nails down a trick, people like stomp their feet, or, you hear skateboarders like slap their skateboard and stuff like that. It's just to like cheer people on, and you're like, oh yeah,
That's awesome. I was reading today, I think it was, about these subcultures that are bubbling up, and one is roller skating in North America. And then I think there was one about running, and people who've taken up running, including myself, in the pandemic, just as a way to get outside, get some fresh air, and just have, something to take their minds off things, and also just have something to focus on for half an hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour. And I think that's so important to have that, to have something that you can focus on, that's not work related or home related.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just to detach from things.
Yeah, it's a nice, it's a nice like escape from reality, even though like, my reality is good. I'm very grateful for my health and a job and for my lovely family. But, sometimes reality is really, really hectic. You just want to escape that for a bit, even if it means, enduring in like 5 kilometers of running pain.
How do
like,
you...
is that like for you said you had picked up running during the pandemic. Is that like, do you find that like as some sort of like an escape for you as well? Or
Definitely. I think that it's funny because I would never have ran before the pandemic. I would never have done it. I would have went to the gym. I would have done high intensity interval training. I would have done sprints, but I would never have jogged for half an hour, 45 minutes. And I just didn't enjoy it at all. And it got to the point where I just felt like I had to get outside. Like Scotland, Britain, Scotland in the winter can be cold, dark, can rain a lot. And actually you just need to get outside and get some fresh air every day. And for me, it was, okay, I'll get out and I'll run 1.5 kilometers. And then the next day I'll try and run 2 kilometers. And then the next week I'll try and run 3 kilometers. And now I'm running like 7, 8, 9 kilometers. And, after you're doing it for a long time or a while, you start to identify your own pace of running. So I don't run for a personal best time. Like, I don't try to beat my time all the time.
Yeah.
Although I look at it and see, okay, am I naturally improving? But you do it and you find a pace for how it feels okay for you to run. And you once you get into that pace, your mind can start to drift away and you can start to think about other things. And yeah, your mind kind of wanders a little bit, but in a nice, peaceful way. It's hard to explain.
No, I get it.
Yeah. So for me, that's like, I run probably 2 or 3 times a week now. And I just think that it's something I want to continue doing, but it's definitely my form of escapism, getting out of the house and doing something, getting some exercise and getting some fresh air.
Mm-hmm. And then would you consider that to be like a new challenge for you? And like, how would you continue to keep it challenging for you?
I don't know if it needs to be challenging. I think it's just the act of getting outside, putting some music on or a podcast on and running and just getting away from the desk and getting away from the work and getting away from the emails and being outside and being able to be free, for that period of time, but,
Yeah.
I'm the kind of guy that I definitely have a bucket list. And I always said that I would love to run a marathon, not for the love of running a marathon, but just for the sake of saying that I have run the marathon. And I was never going to get there. I was never on the path to running a marathon. But now I feel like, you know what? I could be on the path, right?
Totally.
Even a couple of years, it's something I'll do. But I'll definitely start with like a 10K and build up from there. But I feel like I could do that now. And it's not from trying to do that, but it's just from a desire to get out, run, take my mind off things. And then it's naturally built up to that. So it's quite nice.
Yeah, like roller skating for me, it's like you said, running was your excuse to like get outside, do something different, get away from the desk. And for me, that was roller skating.
I'd be interested to know how the last year's been for you and what that's meant for your preparation. And then also, when this all started at the very beginning, it was almost like something in a land far, far away. It wasn't here, and all of a sudden it was here really, 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 really quickly. So it was quite visceral. A lot of people seem to have a moment where the penny dropped and it was real. What was that for you?
Penny drop for me massively was, as you said, end of the Six Nations last year. We were supposed to be playing Wales, down in Wales. We'd heard whispers about it after the France game. That went ahead. And then the whole training week, we're sort of, is it on, is it off? We got confirmation it was definitely going to be on. We flew down on the Friday. We're walking around, went out for breakfast that morning because it was Captain's Day. So went out for breakfast and a coffee with the boys. And we were on the bus to Captain's Run. And yeah, game had been postponed, cancelled because of the pandemic, and we got a bus back to Scotland that night. And we pretty much got told by Team Doc, he says this is going to be worldwide. He called it a week before, and he said to me, look after the family. I won't see you for a couple of months. So, and I said, Doc, you've been crazy. I'll be back here for summer tour. And he says, you won't be. So he called it, and I'll give him credit for that. But I honestly didn't think it was going to kick off as much as it did until the Glasgow boys got sent home as well. And all the WhatsApps kicking off, when we're back to training. Because as soon as you start professional rugby, you're told when to gym, you're told when to eat, and you're told when to go home. It's such a routine. You're handheld the whole way through. You know exactly where you're going to be all day for the whole week. It changes on a daily basis, but yeah, definitely the penny definitely dropped coming back from Wales, and I was thinking, this is crazy. Like, when are we going to play rugby again?
And when was your first game since this all started?
First game was middle of August. I think it was 14th of August.
Mm-hmm. And how did you prepare for that?
We went home that day after Wales, and we pretty much got told you're definitely not going to be in next week or the week after, so go away for 3 weeks, whatever. So then, of course, the WhatsApp's kicking off, right? Can I get a watt bike? Can I get this? Can I get X, Y, and Z from the S&C man was pulling his hair out, and he's bald now, because he's literally driving around all of Glasgow, dropping off all the equipment, because I think they pretty much got a heads up that Scotland's going to be locked down completely. So get as much equipment as you can out of Scotland. So I was really lucky that I got Jamie Dempsey, one of the guys, the Scottish Academy manager. He runs a CrossFit gym in Airdrie. And so I messaged him out of the blue and said, right, I know this is going to be a big thing. Can I just borrow some weight? So I was covered. I had a watt bike and I had a full gym rack and everything. So I got to train pretty hard. But we got back to actually training, I think. It was originally started through in Murrayfield, and it was 3 days a week. You drove to Murrayfield, you got temperature checked, you did weights it was like a solitary confinement square with shields at the side for your protection. You had all your equipment there, you had an hour slot in there, and you went onto the back pitches, and you had a 20-meter running track. You could only do straight line running, you couldn't pass a ball. So that was for a month. And my wife gave birth to our son Hamish end of April. And so, because I had all my equipment already, I said to them, I'll do my running at West of Scotland in Glasgow. Give me a GPS so you can keep monitoring me, but I'll do the sessions. And I've got all the weights at home, probably more weights than you've got here. So I'll just do my weights at home. And they said, yeah, that's fine. It's on you, though, to chip away, because if you come into pre-season, you're not ready to go, we're going to hold you accountable. So I did that for a month, which was tough, trying to work out when the kids are sleeping. And we then came back to full-on training in middle of May, I believe, and that was when we were allowed to pass a ball. And it was originally just passing a ball, a bit of touch games, and then sort of grew, and then into August, 2 weeks before, we could do full smash, and we were back at Scotstoun, which was great fun. So yeah, no, I was just absolutely buzzing to play. I'd done so much road running. I felt like I was a marathon runner. I think the most I did was 15K. I
Nice.
loved it. Just put my headphones in and got to go out and do a spin. I own it to bed, and Yaz would be with Hamish, and I'd go out for an hour and a half run. I loved it. So yeah, I was like, you know what? The key things I took from the pandemic would be, you know, don't take anything for granted. And so I was just buzzing to play rugby again. I never usually like playing against Edinburgh, but even though it was Edinburgh, I didn't care. I was smiling the whole time. I was really chompsy. So I actually, the missus, she gave me a telling off when I got home. She goes, all I heard the whole ref mic was you shouting at the ref. So next game, make sure you don't do that. And I was like, yeah, fair point. I was just so excited to do that.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, just the feelings I had preparation-wise, I was just like, I can't wait to play. Let's just, fingers crossed it goes ahead, because I was just like, if one of us has a positive test, I'll cry. I just want to play rugby again.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, just absolutely buzzing. And even though we lost, I went home that night. I was on the phone to mom and to dad, to my wife, to my little brother, like, because he played as well. I talked to him on the way back to Glasgow, just like, oh, how good was that? We're playing rugby again. I was just so happy. Because it's funny, because it's all I've known since I was 17, and so to get that taken away from me, and people say, oh, it's a sport, but to me, it's my livelihood, you know. And to get back to some sort of normality was massive.
Yeah, absolutely. And then off the back of that, what are your plans for 2021?
Plans for 2021, as I alluded to in the podcast, is just to keep enjoying my rugby. I think if I keep enjoying it, you know, if I play with a smile on my face, I'm gonna play my best rugby. So I want to keep doing that. I'm available to play this week, so fingers crossed. I play for someone at the weekend, that's Glasgow or Scotland. So I'll find out later on in the week. But yeah, just to keep enjoying my rugby, stay healthy, stay fit, and then see what happens. And I think just the key one for me outside of rugby is, you know, just be a good dad and be a good husband. I think what this pandemic's taught me is just to enjoy the little things. I like to live my life at 100 miles an hour. And so we just had the birth of my son Hamish, and I decided to rip up the whole back garden and landscape the whole back garden, mainly myself and a few of the boys, when we were still on that furlough period. And so the early weeks of Hamish's life, I was doing full 12-hour days in the garden, absolutely knackered, and not really enjoying the time with Hamish that I'd had with Iona before. So I definitely think I've got my balance a lot better now, you know. And so that's the key job for me ahead of rugby and ahead of everything else, is just to be a good husband and be a good father, and keep that going for the rest of my life. For as long as I can.
That's good. Final question then, where is the first place you're going to travel to when the world opens up again?
I think the first place for me, I'd love to travel, is going to be Portugal with the family. In August 2019, we took my daughter, who was she was only about what was she? She would have been 3 or 4 months, and for a family holiday, and we absolutely had a great time, loved it. So I think my son doesn't even have a passport yet, but we'll try and get one organised, and we'll get over to Portugal as soon as we can.
With the pandemic, it's been a crazy time for us all. When did you realise that it was a global thing? Because I think for a long time it was something that was happening somewhere else, and all of a sudden quite quickly it was on our doorstep. And I feel like everyone has this moment of like, okay, it's a penny drop moment, and it's here and we need to do something. It all happened quite quick. What was that like for you? When did you realise that? And then I guess, how did it affect the business?
So I again remember seeing it on the news, thinking, I remember specifically when it got bad in Italy, thinking, okay, the UK are a bit behind Italy. We're going to learn from this, and we're not going to get in such a a bad situation, which I guess is a bit naive in hindsight. But you know, I thought, okay, surely like we'll learn from their mistakes, and we'll be a bit more on top of it. And then it really hit me when the lockdown was announced in March, and it was just a panic moment of, oh, this is not good, because all of my production had to stop. So orders that were midway through had to stop. It meant I then couldn't take any new orders on, because like I say, if we're making everything to order, it's not like we have a pile of stock that we could continue to try and sell. So yeah, that was a moment of, oh no, this is not good. And I had a good, I don't know, 3 or 4 days of just panic mode, hit the panic button. And then I think I got grip of myself and just, thought, okay, it'll only be for a couple of months, just calm down, get yourself together. And I'm probably quite thankful that I did think then it was only going to be a couple of months, because if you told me a year down the line we would still be in a lockdown, I don't know what my reaction would have been.
Yeah, I don't think anyone thought it would be this long. I think people thought about it, and there was definitely like some of the scientists were saying, okay, second wave, third wave, the winter could be quite difficult and stuff, but none of the economists that I've read stuff from thought that it would last this long. We were talking about being back in the office in a few weeks and stuff like that at the very beginning, and potentially back in the summer and being okay with that. But for us to be essentially a year later and now have light at the end of the tunnel, which is good. It's pretty crazy. And I think I was saying the statisticians are saying this is like a once in a century event as well. So it's pretty crazy.
It is. And I think that's what I've got to keep remembering, and all business owners, that we're in a situation that we've never had to deal with before. And I know in the start I was particularly hard on myself because I was really worried and panicked. And I think you've just got to give yourself a bit of slack, that everybody's in the same position and everybody's kind of having those worries. And I think in the end I've adopted what will be, because it's kind of out with our control at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's definitely a message of probably not being as demanding of ourselves right now, because I think it's just a situation where we've never experienced anything like this before. The previous generation or two haven't experienced anything like this before, so no one really knows how to deal with it. And although everyone's going through it, we're all in lockdown. We can't socialize in the same way, so there's that feeling of isolation. So although we know others are going through it, for a lot of people it feels like they're the only ones going through it. So I think it's just about trying to stay positive, trying to understand what you need to do to put yourself in the best headspace to be able to do what you can, but also realize a lot of it is out with your control, and it is ending as well. So it's I think there are lots of things to look forward to over the next couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was so easy to sort of get bogged down with what was going on. And I think also part of me, because running a business, I like to be in control of everything. So it's having that control taken away from you, I feel, is such a big adjustment, because you're kind of now being told what we can and can't do. So it's just kind of, it's been a hard sort of thing to adjust to. And I've been escaping in things like baking and whatnot, because if not, I think you can just find yourself worrying, and what's happening is happening regardless whether you worry or not. So, there's I think I just had to get to a point where I just thought, what's happening is happening. You sitting worrying about it all day and all night is not going to make it any better. So I think you definitely have to try and just be kinder to yourself, and try and, like you say, there's light at the end of the tunnel now, and just try and plan for what you can do moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you adapt? What were the things that you did for your brand to adapt to everything?
So actually for so long I've been asked for things like scarves and entry point pieces to the brand, but it was kind of just, I guess, never having the time to dedicate to that. So I took the time to create some silk scarves. So I worked over the last 5-6 years on digital printing with my tartans and on special projects and things. So I took it a step further and actually developing some silk scarves, which had some sort of fun illustrations reflecting some previous kilts and things, some some of my favorite pieces from over the years, really, and just encapsulating that into a sort of fun collection of silk scarves. And again, that just gives a more easy sell sort of product. Just, you know, a scarf doesn't need a specific measurement or anything like that, and it's also a nice sort of gifting piece, and again just comes in at more of an accessory price point rather than sort of full outfit or anything.
Yeah. And I think we were kind of talking before this about, I mean, they're really lovely designs. I think, you know, it'd be perfect for I can see it in Harrods and T5 and Heathrow when people are traveling, and I can see it being the perfect thing for that kind of environment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such an easy thing to sort of just pick up, like you say, from an airport, nice store or something. It's just nice and small and compact as well. It doesn't take up too much space in your luggage.
Awesome. And then what are the next steps then for you post-COVID? Like, what are you going to do?
So I've been working on a digital atelier idea where you could build your full outfit and customize each element yourself via my website. So it sort of involves scanning in the textiles and things like that. And because my kilts and my outfits aren't traditional, it can be sometimes quite hard for someone who's only ever seen a traditional piece to visualize the possibilities and what could be done. So by putting the design process into the customer's hands, it's going to give a much more slick customer experience and journey where they can play about with as many options as possible. Because currently we have a design brief and discussion, and then I will do them designs, send it back, which works because most of my customers are overseas. So that works fine. It's great to have that technology, but I just think we can step it up a level and we can make it a lot more modern as well. And sort of everything in retail, I think, is heading towards tech. So it's something actually I pitched originally in about 2015. So not long after I started the business, to a funding competition, and the panel sort of feedback was that it wasn't a good idea. And it's something I regret, was not going with my gut, because it's something I guess I've always had in the back burner that I've wanted to do. But because, like I said earlier, I studied fashion and not business. So what I found hard in the start was making decisions and whether it was the right decision for the business. And so I would take on sort of feedback and listen to that quite literal, rather than, you know, taking it on but still going with my gut. So that's something I regret not doing sooner, because I feel like had I had that in place, maybe I would have been able to continue the sales a bit better and things with COVID, with that sort of up and running. But it's something I'm going to now, and I think it'll really transform the bespoke side of the business. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I think like there's obviously a lot of things that have happened within retail over the last year or so, with a couple of the bigger brands going into administration. And, you know, I think, you know, the pandemic has accelerated behavior changes and accelerated trends by, like, you know, a decade. So a lot of things have moved forward quite quickly. And I think from I've seen other brands like glasses companies and stuff like that be able to serve up an idea of where you're able to try on the glasses before you buy them and come into store and stuff. So I think like the interplay between e-commerce and what people do online and the research they're able to do, and then also traditional retail, the interplay between those two things will be quite different. I think there's like, you know, I think probably in a year or so's time, it's quite exciting actually for retail and the experiences you'll be able to offer people. So I think that's quite cool, and I think there's just a lot of room for creativity and reinventing ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, retail is definitely going to be moving in the direction of experiences, because online has been taken over for the last few years and really stepping down footfall within stores. But I actually feel like probably because of the pandemic, people will appreciate actually going out more and actually being able to go into a shop and not taking that for granted. They're probably sick of shopping online by now. So, I think although physical retail stores, it's not a good time for them now, I think the future is full of opportunity if they play it right and if they take on, actually step outside of what they currently do and move their business models forward into more experience-led sort of ideas.
Yeah, the way this is me being like an engineer, I think, reconcile it in my mind this way, but I think like you almost want to change it into like a a museum experience where you can kind of stroll through and just touch and learn about the whatever is going on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are the learnings you're going to take forward when things start to open up and we can all start doing business again in a more normal way?
I think probably just appreciating that sort of freedom of being able to meet people from, you know, meetings and clients and things like that. And just, I don't know, just, I think it's just really sort of shaken up the way everyone is. And I think also just towards myself to not be so, I don't know, hard on myself and always, you know, expecting myself to do X, Y, and Z. I think it's kind of taught people to maybe just be a bit more mindful of how they treat themselves as well, especially as a business owner.
Definitely. I think as well, like it's really refined the things that I'm really passionate about, and it's really refined the things that are really important to me. And I think I've always enjoyed the process of growing a business and being creative and being entrepreneurial. But I think you know, sometimes I probably didn't enjoy the moments as much or enjoy the kind of the little important things as much. And I think for me, it's about, one of the things is definitely taking time to enjoy those moments and be even more involved in the process and be even more grateful for it.
I totally agree, because there's so many things like Team Scotland, for example, people are like, oh my gosh, that's amazing that you've done that. But I guess because you know that you've done that, you know, you've got that contract, say, so far in advance before it happens, you're kind of like, yeah, okay. And then you're on to the next thing. Well, I'm doing this, and you're trying to think, I've got 10 other things I'm trying to work on now. And you don't actually stop in the moment to be like, oh, wow, that was a really big thing, you know? So I think, yeah, like you say, just be a bit more grateful and appreciative of the moments that you have and the achievements that you make as well, because I feel like we've not been able to do much in the last year. I've kind of felt like I haven't achieved anything because I've been so used to having all of these different achievements and things like that just to stop dead in your tracks is kind of like, well, actually, now I'm going to look back and yeah, I did do this and I did this and that was really good.
So one of the things we always ask is, where is the first place you're going to travel to once we can travel again?
I think from earlier in the discussion, my love of New York came across. I think I'll definitely go to New York. I've got a lot of friends through the industry there. And I also just feel like there's so much opportunity that happens there business-wise when you go. And I feel like I say, after a year of almost not achieving anything, it's the most logical place business-wise to head to and try and get some things going.
Yeah, definitely. Getting amongst it again and make things happen.
Yeah, and feeling that excitement as well. It's so exciting when you get a meeting with Elle, for example, and it's that buzz that you sort of thrive off in business. So to not have anything sort of happening the last year is a bit flatline. So I think, you know, to get that buzz back and get those exciting meetings in it's good.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's definitely a buzz you get from being anywhere, being in the city and pacing the streets and just making things happen, chapping doors and getting meetings.
Absolutely.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Siobhan, for being here.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me.
Thank you all again for watching or listening, and we'll see you soon. Take care.